Joining us now, one of the House Democrats leading those calls, Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Yesterday, he was named the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. And it seems to me, and I think you've talked about this before, that there needs to be kind of a new way of how documents are handled in the first place.
Yeah, that's right, Mika. And, you know, I can't get over the amount of time and energy and effort that has been spent on what is a really pretty simple proposition here, right? You know, no fact in Washington can not be used to indicate the fundamental virtue of the ex-president or the, you know, sins of the current president. This is really simple. Classified documents should not be out of classified spaces, and it doesn't matter whether they were under a Corvette in Wilmington or under a beer cooler in Mar-a-Lago. Documents need to stay in classified spaces. Number two, clear fact, if you cooperate, you won't have angry-looking FBI agents showing up at your door. If you ignore a subpoena, if you lie to the Department of Justice, you will. That's a fact. And thirdly, you know, part of my frustration here is this is not a huge and hard problem to solve. This is not Middle Eastern peace, right? We need 30-year-old DNI or CIA people to look at the 20 or 30 boxes that leave the White House or that leave the Naval Observatory to make sure that there isn't classified information. Full stop. Solve the problem.
So, Congressman, good morning. Jonathan Lemire. So what can Congress do about this? Is there some sort of legislation reform that can be passed? And also, beyond just in terms of safeguarding classified material, but also looking at perhaps what some have said is the problem of overclassification, that entirely too much is classified, including, say, president's schedule, daily schedule, which, hey, on that day you want to keep secret because you don't want to advertise where he's going, say, if he's overseas. But, you know, once that trip has passed, a few years later, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Look, first of all, we need to keep the problem separate. I think overclassification is a problem, but overclassification, and by the way, we should look at that, right? It creates a huge burden on lots of people to, you know, not disclose information, which you can probably read on the front page of the New York Times, right? But it's a separate problem. And, you know, no, I don't think we need legislation. I don't think we need a blue ribbon commission on how to keep classified information in the White House. Again, I think we need a 30-year-old with a top secret SCI security clearance to look at a bunch of boxes. And I think I know how this happens, right? When I get classified information, I go to a SCIF in the basement of the Capitol. I take my phones and watch off and everything else. And then when I leave the SCIF, I look at my folders and make sure that I haven't inadvertently taken information. The whole White House and the whole Naval Observatory, this is you know, these are secure places where the president or the vice president can take documents to a study or take documents to the living room. This is not that hard a problem to solve, but it needs to be solved because even if information is slightly classified, it's classified for a reason in all likelihood.
Congressman, let me ask you about another story. You were named ranking member of the House Intel Committee yesterday, ascending to that position because Adam Schiff was blocked by Speaker McCarthy from taking that seat. What's your reaction to that decision and more broadly the way that Speaker McCarthy and Republicans have been moving to keep certain Democrats off of committees?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's pretty simple what happened, right? We all watched the 5-day period in which Kevin McCarthy had to go through 15 votes to become Speaker of the House. And so there was a list of things that he had to do to get those 20 votes that he couldn't get until the 15th round. And one of those things was to, in my opinion, unfairly remove Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell from the Intelligence Committee, right? He said he was going to do it. And if he hadn't done it, if he hadn't committed to do it, he wouldn't be Speaker, right? That's one of the long list of, you know, hostage negotiation points that the 20 got from him. It disappoints me because I worked very closely with both of them, and I understand that Republicans are angry that they were leaders in investigating President Trump's call to Ukraine when he said, you don't get military aid unless you give me dirt on the Bidens. I understand that they're angry about that, but to remove 20 years worth of experience from a really critical role, that is intelligence oversight, that just shouldn't have been on the list of demands that Kevin McCarthy had to offer up to the folks that weren't going to vote for him for Speaker. That makes us a little less safe that it happened.
Well, I know a lot of Democrats take some solace knowing you'll be the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Congressman, thanks as always for your time. We appreciate it.